It's strange revisiting this now, after all this time. Life settled back into something recognizable, I suppose, and the job feels distant, almost like a story someone else told me. But recently, a detail would surface, a smell, a certain shade of paint, and nudge it all back to the front of my mind. So I figured, maybe it's worth writing it down, getting it out of my head once and for all. It was a simple job, really, a warehouse on the edge of everything. The shift ended like any other. I logged the pallet counts, double-checked the manifest for outbound freight, and sent the automated report. Lyle usually called around then, just to confirm receipt, I guess. He's a stickler for procedure. Nothing. Just the hum of the ventilation, the distant thrum of the highway. I was already halfway to the truck when I saw her. Standing by the loading bay, leaning against a stack of shrink wrap. Ada, I hadn't seen her since the training seminar in Harrisburg. That was 3 years ago, maybe? She'd been in accounting then, which is weird. What would she be doing here? She didn't even look up, just kept staring at the concrete floor. Ada? I called out, and she finally raised her head. A small, almost apologetic smile. Didn't mean to startle you, Kurt. Long drive? You remember Harrisburg? I asked. It felt stupid the second I said it. Of course she remembered Harrisburg. We'd all been stuck in that conference room together for 3 days, but the way she looked at me wasn't recognition. Exactly. More like confirmation. Of course, she said, and then she said something that made the back of my neck prickle. Especially the diner. You always ordered the apple pie, even though you said it was too sweet. I never talked to Ada about the diner. I barely spoke to her at all. I hadn't even thought about that pie in years. It was a stupid little habit, something I did when I felt restless. Small world, I said, trying to keep my voice even. What brings you out here? Just checking in, she said vaguely, making sure everything's running smoothly. She glanced at her watch. I should probably get going. She walked past me, heading toward the employee parking lot. She didn't wave, she didn't look back. I stood there for a minute, just watching. Must be a new regional auditor or something. Lyle would have mentioned it, but why Harrisburg? Why the pie? Maybe she'd been looking through old training records. People do background checks now, right? It's just thorough. I tried Lyle's cell again. Nothing. Just that dial tone, then the automated message. Your call cannot be completed as dialed. I checked the bars. Full signal. It wasn't the network. I walked back toward the warehouse, figuring maybe I'd left something in the office. Anything to avoid just standing around. The lot was emptier now. Shift change, I guess. That's when I saw her. Near the loading dock, leaning against a stack of pallets. Same coat, same everything. She wasn't looking at me, just staring out at the field. I took the long way around toward the receiving bay, hoping to get inside without her noticing. Figured I could call Lyle from the office landline. Except the door was locked. I always leave it unlocked. Always. I rummaged for my keys, fumbling, locked. Definitely locked. I walked back, trying to keep to the shadows of the building, and she'd moved. Not much, maybe 10 feet closer to the entrance I was trying to use, still looking out at the field. This is when it started to feel wrong. Really wrong. It wasn't just the pie thing or her being here twice. It was the way she seemed to anticipate my movements. Like she knew I'd try the receiving bay. It was probably some kind of internal security thing. Lyle must have said something about a new protocol, new security guard, a test maybe? I tried the main entrance. Locked too. I swear, I never lock those doors. Never. I walked quickly, almost a jog, toward my car. I had to get out of there. Had to get a signal. As I reached my car, I glanced back. She was gone. Vanished. But my car wouldn't start. Just a click, click, click. Dead battery, which is impossible. I charged it yesterday. The click of the starter echoed in the stillness. Just clicking. I tried again. Nothing. Okay, don't panic. Maybe a loose connection. I popped the hood. But even before I touched anything, I knew it wasn't that. Everything looked clean. Too clean, like someone had been in there. Not messing with things, just looking. I slammed the hood down. That's when I heard it. a floorboard creaking inside the warehouse, not a settling sound, a definite step. I whipped around, heart hammering. She wasn't at the doors, not visible anyway. "Lyle?" I called out, even though I knew he wouldn't answer. No signal. It was like the whole area was a dead zone, and it hadn't been yesterday. I started walking toward the warehouse again, faster this time. Maybe there was a jump starter inside, in the office. Stupid to leave it there, but... The office window was dark. I tried the door, and it opened, too easily. The office was empty, but the overhead fluorescent flickered, casting long, dancing shadows, and on my desk, right in the middle of my logbook, was a single dried sunflower. Sunflowers. My grandmother, Elma, used to grow them. She died when I was 8. Nobody knows about that. Nobody I've told anyway. A coldness settled in my stomach, deeper than the fear. It wasn't just about being stuck here anymore. Someone knew. Someone was messing with me. Then the lights went out. Complete darkness. I fumbled for my phone, the screen illuminating my shaking hands. A shape moved in the periphery. A dark coat. Too close. I scrambled backward, knocking over a chair. The shape didn't rush me, didn't speak. It just shifted. Then, a back door I didn't even know existed swung open with a groan, revealing a sliver of moonlit field. It was almost inviting. I didn't hesitate. I ran. The field was cold, the grass slick with something I didn't want to think about. I kept running until I hit the road, flagging down the first vehicle I saw, a beat-up pickup driven by a guy named Lyle. He barely said 2 words, just got me to the nearest town, the one with the diner and the gas station. First thing I did was call a tow truck for my car. The mechanic, Gord, was thorough. He said the distributor cap was completely wrecked, not just loose, wrecked, like someone had taken a hammer to it. He kept looking at me funny, as if he thought I was lying about being alone out there. I went back to the warehouse with him, needing to grab my things. The power was still out. Gord had a flashlight, and we went inside. It smelled stale, even worse than before. I found the chair I'd knocked over, and next to it, lying on the concrete, was that music box, the one with the ballerina. It was open. Gord didn't say anything, just kept shining the light around. I picked up the box. The ballerina wouldn't spin. I wound it tight, but nothing happened. Then I noticed something carved into the bottom, almost hidden. A single initial. N. Norma? My grandmother's name. It had to be a coincidence. There were probably dozens of Normas. Someone had just owned this box before. But then I remembered the way that man, the one in the coat, had known about my grandmother, about the stories she used to tell me. It wasn't random. Someone was watching me, setting this up. Maybe it was a prank, some twisted game. I asked Gord if he'd seen anyone around, but he just shook his head. He said the place looked abandoned for years. As we left, I glanced back at the open back door, and for a split second, I thought I saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was gone before I could be sure, but I knew with a sickening certainty that I wasn't imagining things. It's funny, the things you get used to or don't. Exactly. More like adapt to. I haven't been back to that area of the county since, not willingly. For a long time, I avoided anything resembling a warehouse. Even driving past big box stores felt wrong, all that echoing space. It wasn't a fear of him being there, not anymore. It was the feeling of being known. I used to take road trips, just me, a full tank of gas, and a playlist. Derek always hated it. He said I was running from something. Maybe he was right. I used to crave that anonymity, the open road, being completely untraceable. Now I always pick routes with towns, with people. I plan stops. I tell someone where I'm going. It started small, checking the rearview mirror more often, avoiding dark corners and parking lots. Then it became more automatic. If I'm in a restaurant, I have to have a table where I can see the entrance. Not because I think someone will come, but because I need to know who could. It's exhausting. I thought for a while that it was about Norma, that she was involved somehow. A former acquaintance of my grandmother's, maybe? Someone who'd overheard things. I even tried to find a Norma who fit, digging through old yearbooks and social media. There were dozens. None of them felt right. None of them explained the coat, the way he just knew. Yesterday, I was at the hardware store picking up paint for the bathroom. Just a normal Saturday. And as I walked past the lumber section, that automatic thing happened. My hand went to my keys, not to unlock anything, just to have something solid in my grip. I didn't even realize I was doing it until my knuckles were white. I haven't told anyone about this, not a word. It just sat with me, and I realized keeping it locked away wasn't making it any smaller. There's a strange weight to things unsaid, and I needed to put it somewhere, even if that somewhere is just out there in the world now. It happened during a job I used to have, driving for a local courier service, mostly overnight routes. Those hours get to you, eventually. The scanner chirped again, another delivery out near Hemlock Creek. Honestly, Hemlock Creek felt less like a place and more like a dare. Miles of winding dirt roads, houses spaced so far apart you could probably yell for an hour and no one would hear. But it paid double for deliveries past 8, and rent wasn't getting any cheaper. I was almost past the turn for Old Man Tiber's farm when I saw her, standing by the mailbox, same as before. Older woman, dark coat, holding something in her hands. I almost didn't bother stopping. I figured she was waiting for someone, or maybe just thinking, but then I remembered my grandmother, always out in the cold, even when she didn't need to be. I pulled over and killed the engine. "Everything all right?" I asked, rolling down the window. She didn't seem surprised to see me. She didn't even flinch. Just looked up, slowly. She was holding a postcard, faded and yellowed. "Beautiful roses," she said, her voice raspy. "Your mother always did have a knack for them, especially the climbers, didn't they?" My stomach did a weird flip. My mother, she did love roses, but that's just a common thing to like, right? Anyone could guess that, except the climbers. She only ever grew climbing roses over the back porch. Nobody ever saw that but us. I stammered, feeling my face get hot. "How did you know?" She smiled, a slow, unsettling curve of her lips. "Oh, I just have a good memory for gardens. And faces. You remind me of your father, you know, especially the way you squint when you're trying to be polite." I felt a prickle on the back of my neck. My father has been gone for 20 years, and I don't squint. I really don't. Maybe she's just confused. Old people get confused, right? It's probably just a coincidence, a really weird, unsettling coincidence. I gave her a weak smile, backed out, and practically floored it to the next delivery. I needed a coffee, a strong one. The coffee didn't help. It just made my hands shake more. I tried to focus on the deliveries, but every mailbox felt like it was watching me. I took Hemlock Creek Road again, trying to tell myself it was the quickest route, but it wasn't. Not really. I just didn't want to go back the way I came. Then I saw the truck. A beat-up Ford, dark green, parked a little ways down from Bet's place. It wasn't there when I'd gone by before. It wasn't anyone I recognized, just there. And Bet wasn't at the mailbox. She was standing by the edge of her garden, looking right at me. Not waving, just looking. I sped up, telling myself I was being paranoid. Probably a local. Maybe she'd told someone about the delivery. Small town gossip. But then I saw the figure get out of the truck. It was a woman, older, bundled in a dark coat. She didn't come towards Bet. She just stood there, watching me. I took the next dirt road, a shortcut that would loop me back onto the main highway. It added 15 minutes or more, but I needed to put some distance between us. I glanced in my rearview mirror. The green truck was moving too, not right behind me, but definitely following the same direction. It wasn't a chase, not yet, more like a correction, like it was making sure I stayed on course. I started thinking about my old neighborhood, the one I grew up in. My dad used to fix up old cars, always tinkering. He knew everyone's vehicle. He'd have known that truck. Maybe it was someone from back then, someone I'd forgotten, a disgruntled customer. It was a long shot, but it was better than what else could it be? Then I remembered the garden at Bet's. My mother used to grow those same climbing roses, the exact same shade of pink, and she always said, always, that the trick was to prune them back in late February. Bet's roses looked perfectly pruned. I floored it. Back onto the main road, ignoring the speed limit and everything. I didn't even look in the mirror. I kept my eyes straight ahead, trying to put distance between me and that green truck. It wasn't gaining, I don't think, but every time I glanced, and I was glancing constantly, it was there, always there. My phone buzzed, a text from Denise. "Hey, you okay? You were supposed to call me back hours ago. Everything all right?" I almost didn't answer. What could I even say? Some guy in a truck is following me, and an old lady knew things about my dad she shouldn't have. It sounded insane, even to me. I just texted back, "Long day, traffic." Then another buzz, this time a picture. A grainy photo of my car taken from behind, and below it a single word, Rue. Rue, my grandmother's name, my mother's middle name. I hadn't spoken that name aloud in years. I hadn't even thought about it in years. It felt like a punch. This wasn't random. This wasn't some coincidence with the truck. Someone was deliberately taunting me. It had to be someone from high school, someone who knew my family, digging up old stuff. Probably a really twisted prank. I turned off the main road again, onto a smaller one, hoping to lose them. That's when I saw it. Not the truck yet, but a mailbox, bright red, and taped to it a single perfect pink rose, the same kind as Bet's, the same kind my mother grew. I slammed on the brakes. I nearly went into the ditch, and then I saw the truck, slowing down behind me. Not speeding up, not trying to ram me, just slowing, like it wanted me to notice. I threw the car into reverse, gravel spraying everywhere, and took off the other direction, hard hammering. I didn't see anyone get out of the truck. I didn't see anyone near the mailbox. But when I finally dared to look in the rearview mirror, the truck was gone, and I realized my delivery bag wasn't in the passenger seat anymore. I must have left it when I reversed. Just left it. I just sat there, engine running, staring at the empty passenger seat. My bag was gone. Everything in it was gone. Packages, yes, but also my water bottle, the granola bars Denise makes me. That stupid stress ball shaped like a sloth. It wasn't a random robbery. No one just takes a delivery bag. Not out here. I called dispatch. They said they'd mark the packages as undeliverable and file a report. It sounded so clinical, like I'd just misplaced a file folder. I told them about the green truck, the woman with the roses, and the texts. The person on the other end sounded bored. "We'll add it to the report, sir." I needed to get back to the route. I just needed to keep moving. I started retracing my steps, scanning for the bag, for the truck. Nothing. Then I remembered Old Man Fitch's place. He's hard of hearing and always complaining about the volume of my van. I'd had to knock really loud. That's where I'd last definitely had the bag. I pulled up, and there it was, hanging from his mailbox, like a twisted Christmas decoration. I nearly didn't get out of the van. I just stared at it, this canvas bag swinging gently in the breeze. I finally forced myself to grab it. Everything was still inside, except there was something else. A small folded piece of paper tucked into one of the pockets. I unfolded it, hands shaking, one word written in that same messy script as the texts, Rue. Rue. That was my grandmother's name. No one calls me that. No one even knows I go by Rue except my mom used to. Before everything, it all clicked suddenly. The roses, the texts, the knowing, it wasn't random. It was someone from back then, someone who knew my mother, someone who was maybe looking for her. Maybe they thought I was her. I had to find out who was behind this. I drove straight to the sheriff's station. I needed to file a proper report and show them the note. I needed to know what this meant. I told Deputy Prue everything. She listened, nodded, and then asked me about the old Blackwood property. She said there had been a disturbance there a few years ago. Something about a missing person. She said it was a long time ago, a cold case. And then she asked me if I knew a woman named Nim. She said Nim used to live out there with her brother, and that's when I froze, because Nim was my mother's best friend. Deputy Prue didn't seem to think Nim was a big deal. She moved away years ago. Her brother, well, he had some trouble, mostly just kept to himself after. Trouble didn't quite cover it, the file said. Missing, presumed dead. And the Blackwood property overgrown, sold off piece by piece. She'd let me look at the old case file, grainy photos of a young woman with dark hair. Not much else. It felt incomplete, like they hadn't really looked. I kept driving my route for weeks after that, expecting something. Another rose, another note. Nothing. Then it stopped. It didn't feel like an ending, though. More like waiting, like being watched from a distance. I started taking different routes, avoiding the Blackwood roads altogether. I told myself it was just nerves, that I was imagining things. I started seeing Rosie less. She said I was distant, and I guess I was. I kept thinking about my mom and Nim, trying to piece together what they were like as kids. I convinced myself Nim's brother, Emmett, was still out there somewhere, maybe obsessed with finding out what happened to his sister. Maybe he'd fixated on my mother, seeing a resemblance, blaming her somehow. It was the only thing that made any sense. I haven't delivered to that area in almost 1 year now. I requested a change of zone. My supervisor, Fitch, gave me a hard time, but I insisted. I still get the shakes sometimes, though. It's stupid. I was putting a package in someone's mailbox last Tuesday, a small box for Bet, and the scent of roses hit me. Just for a second. Just there. And for a second, the box wasn't a box at all. It was a canvas bag, swinging in the breeze. I almost didn't believe what I was reading. Scrolling through a forum late one night, someone was describing a job, night security, at a huge empty industrial space down by the water, and the details were uncannily familiar. It was the same kind of place, the same pointless patrols logged on a screen, the same echoing quiet. Seeing it written out like that, someone else having lived through the same slow boredom, made me want to finally tell someone about it myself. The chipped formica of the security desk was cold under my elbows. This is the third night now. It is still quiet, too quiet, maybe for a place this size. It's a labyrinth in there, that warehouse complex. Dockside industrial, they call it. Mostly vacant for decades, everyone says. A few smaller companies lease space, mostly for storage. But the bulk of it is just empty. I was doing my rounds, checking the perimeter cameras, the south side, facing the water, when I noticed it again. A flicker on camera 6. Just for a second. I thought it was a glitch at first. Static, maybe. Then I rewound it, slowed it down, a figure moving fast, near the loading docks. I keyed the radio. Dispatch, this is Zane, possible trespasser, south side, camera 6, requesting backup. Dispatch. Denise, sounded tired as usual, said she'd alert Hector. I watched the camera, zoomed in. Nothing. Just shadows and the rain slicking the concrete. Hector arrived and we did a sweep, empty. There was no sign anyone had been there. Hector figured it was a stray animal, a raccoon maybe. The docks are full of them. We checked the access logs. Nothing registered, which is weird, because the loading bay doors are supposed to be alarmed. Hector shrugged it off. He said the system's old and prone to errors. He reset the alarm. But then, when I got back to the desk, I noticed a small stack of papers had been moved. It wasn't a big deal, really, just shifted a few inches. I'd been meticulous about arranging them earlier. It must have been the draft from the vent, I thought. It's always drafty in here. Still, I straightened them. A little OCD, I guess. I really need to get a new hobby. I checked the cameras again before my coffee got cold. Nothing. Just the usual shadows stretching long in the loading bay. I almost laughed. An animal, right? Hector had been so sure. Still, I replayed the footage of the movement near Bay 12, slowed it down. It was quick. Too quick for a raccoon. Maybe a deer that wandered in from the marsh, but deer don't usually stick around loading docks. Then I noticed something else. The light in Bay 17. It hadn't been on before. Just a flicker. Barely perceptible. But it was there. I zoomed in. Nothing visible. Probably just a faulty bulb, old wiring in this place. I made a note to add it to the work order when Selma gets in tomorrow. I decided to do a perimeter check, just to be thorough. I took the long way around, past the old paint storage. I usually cut through the alley, saving 5 minutes. But something felt off, like I was being watched. Stupid, I know, it's a huge place. I checked the security logs on my radio as I walked. No alarms triggered, everything normal. When I got back to the desk, Winnie had left a note. Cassie called, asked about you, said she needed those invoices by morning. Cassie, my ex. She hadn't spoken to me in months. Why now? It was weird timing. I shrugged it off. Probably just work, but I relocked the file cabinet just in case. I started a new log entry, detailing the light in Bay 17, the possible deer, Cassie's call. Routine stuff. I added a note. Possible disgruntled employee checking cameras. It felt neat. A logical explanation. I kept replaying the camera feeds, fast-forwarding, rewinding. Bay 17. Nothing. Nothing for a full hour after I'd seen that flicker. I started to think I'd imagined it. Maybe the rain was messing with the system, a power surge. Old buildings do that. I called Denise, just to talk it through. She laughed and said I was letting my imagination run wild. Probably a raccoon, Zane, or Felix trying to sneak a smoke. Felix was the overnight janitor. He'd been with the company forever. It made a weird kind of sense. Then the fire alarm went off. Not a full-blown wail, just the little chirp, chirp, chirp that meant a pull station had been activated. Sector 4. The opposite end of the complex from me. I grabbed the radio, calling for Hector to investigate, but he was already on it. Sector 4, confirmed pull station. Looks clean, no smoke, no fire. His voice sounded tight, but the door's unlocked. Loading bay door. It shouldn't be. I started moving. Not running, but fast walking. My gut was twisting. Sector 4 was Selma's old route. Selma had retired last year, after 30 years on the night shift. She knew this place like the back of her hand. It was her pride. She always said someone trying to get in would have to know exactly where to step to avoid the pressure sensors. As I rounded the corner towards Sector 4, I saw it. A small, folded piece of paper taped to the security camera housing. I ripped it down. One word, handwritten in block letters, look. I looked up instinctively and saw the red light on the camera wasn't blinking. It was off, completely off. And then Hector's voice, frantic on the radio. Zane, get out of here now. Hector was screaming into the radio now, just static, and his voice repeating, Zane, get out. I tried to raise him back, but it was all noise. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped the handset. I grabbed my jacket, didn't bother with the keys for the golf cart, just started running towards the main gate, towards away. I kept glancing back, expecting to see someone, something, rounding the corners of the corrugated iron buildings. Nothing. Just the shadows stretching long and weird in the security lights. The whole place felt wrong, not just broken down industrial wrong, but actively hostile. I got to the gate, fumbled with the access code, and practically dove into my car once it opened. I drove straight to Denise's. I needed to see a face. I needed to hear a normal voice. She wasn't surprised to see me. Not really. She just looked tired. What happened? She asked, already pouring me coffee. I told her everything, about the note, about Hector, about the feeling of being watched. Hector's a drama queen, she said, but her voice was flat. He probably just saw a raccoon and overreacted. Then her phone rang. She answered, listened for a moment, and her face went white. Zane, she said, hanging up. That was the police. They want to talk to you. Apparently that warehouse wasn't abandoned. Not exactly. It was a temporary storage facility for evidence. From the Birch case. Birch. Tobias Birch. The pharmaceutical guy. The one who disappeared 6 months ago. I remembered reading about it. The police had never found a body. They thought he'd fled the country. They think, Denise continued, her voice barely a whisper. Someone was using the warehouse to clean things up, and they think whoever was there might still be inside. I'd been so focused on a trespasser, on someone just messing around, that I hadn't even considered that this wasn't random, that someone was actively trying to hide something, and that they knew I'd seen the note, they knew I was watching, and now they knew where I was. It's been years. I still drive the long way. Always. Even when I'm late, even when it makes no logical sense. It started subtly, just avoiding certain streets near the industrial park. Then it was entire sections of town. Now it's most routes. Denise called a couple of times after I left her place. She was just checking in. She said the police were asking questions about me, about what I'd been doing out there. I told her I'd just been exploring. Photography, a stupid lie, and she didn't press. After that, nothing. I tried reaching out, but her number was disconnected. I figured she'd been advised to cut ties. Smart, probably. I kept thinking about Zane, the security guard. He'd seemed genuinely relieved when I'd told him about the note. Too relieved, like he'd been waiting for someone to find it. I spent weeks going over the security footage I'd downloaded, looking for a flicker of something, a knowing glance, anything. I convinced myself he was involved, that he'd let whoever it was in or out, whatever. A small piece of the puzzle. Then I remembered the way he'd subtly steered me away from certain sections of the warehouse. He hadn't warned me off, just guided my attention elsewhere. It wasn't collusion, it was damage control. He wasn't letting someone in, he was containing them. I never went back to the warehouse. I didn't want to. Not ever. The other day, I was at the hardware store getting potting soil. The automatic doors opened, and for a split second, the sound wasn't the doors. It was air rushing, like a heavy exhale. I blinked, and it was just the doors, of course. Just the hydraulics. But I stood there, frozen, for a long time afterward, clutching that bag of soil.